Oh, how do folks? Right, so it's been quite a long day, so I'm indulging in the last of my, I think it's the last one, my Christmas whiskey miniatures. So cheers everyone. Not bad. Anyway, yes, this is a belated conclusion to my Antenna Shootout Series. It's now into towards the end of February 2021, and I finished those last shootouts. I don't know, I think end of autumn last year. But anyway, it is what it is. There's plenty been going on, as you're all aware. But yeah, that's the situation as far as why I had to delay things. The situation was with the last shootout is that I ended up going to a place that I didn't really want to go to, as in Blorange Mountain on a sunny day. Because if you go to Blorange Mountain on a sunny day, the car park is nearly always full up, and it was. And I had to wait up there for ages for the space in the far corner of the car park to clear, because that was the side of the car park that gave me the best signal launch back to the receiving station. Had I done the test from the other side where I initially parked, there would have been a load of vehicles, including a motorhome, in the way to disrupt the signal. And I wanted to give those big twigs that final chance to show their worth. In addition, like I said, I didn't have a complete line of sight, a pure line of sight back to the receiving station. I had a good signal launch, but it wasn't quite line of sight. I really wanted complete line of sight, but it wasn't meant to be. I couldn't get to my intended location because at the time South Wales was having areas locked down one by one, and I could see it spreading. So the place I wanted to go to, that had already been locked down. So I thought, right, I've got to go for it. And it ended up a sunny day, and it ended up Blorange. But there we go. Downside was, had I gone to where I wanted to go, or had I gone to Blorange on a day where the weather wasn't very nice, I could have done more tests as far as showing you the difference between the orientation of the vehicle with the gain from front to back and side to side. That'll have to wait for another day. Anyway, we did prove, or I did prove on the day, that there was some merit in running big antennas when you've got a good clear signal launch and you've got an ideal installation location. I used a Polo on that day, which has no roof rack or anything like that on the roof, and a fixed mount right the way through the roof, drilled through the roof. And indeed, we did see some clear blue water. I think about half an S point between the big twigs and say the best of the medium-sized ones. So there we go. But up until then, sometimes those big antennas were actually down on some of the medium-sized ones. So there we go. Anyway, what I will do now is run through from the shorter antennas up through to the bigger ones, and tell you what I've decided to deploy, and a couple of plus points and negatives on some of the particular antennas. I haven't got all the antennas with me. Some of them are actually deployed. The 5-foot fire stick is actually run as a home base antenna down at the other place, and other ones are distributed in one or two vehicles. But I'll show you what I've got, and run through a few conclusions following on from those. I think I ended up doing about 5 shootouts. Oh, okay, caught that just in time. Actually, my memory card was full. But anyway, let's go from the worst performing antenna of the lot, which no surprise was the little mini Springer. Now, I wouldn't say it was a dead loss. Some people absolutely hate these things, and indeed these spring type antennas, they do tend to get a bit of a wobble on, and that can affect the signal, because basically it's changing polarization as you're going along. Somebody just racing past there out on the main road, and it sounds like they're going far too fast, and the most likely outcome will be they crash. So I'll probably expect to see a car in a field tomorrow morning when I drive down to the shops. But anyway, I digress. Anyway, yes, they can change polarization as you go along the road, almost from an inverted V or a horizontal to a vertical, and indeed as the coil becomes compressed either way, that will affect your SWR. And if they really get bent over and this coil sort of shorts out, so to speak, your SWR can be quite high indeed. But I wouldn't say they're a complete dead loss. Good tough antenna, and they weren't hopeless performing antennas. I think we're about an S point down on the best short antenna. So there we go. It is to be expected. It's the shortest one of the lot, and you can expect that something like this won't actually cover many channels as far as SWR is concerned. It's probably a 40 channel twig, and they can be a bit finicky as far as sitting on top of small mag mounts, and they can be a bit finicky if you've got things like roof bars and things like that around. So there we go. Anyway, that's the worst performing one. Now, pretty much the best performing short antenna was this one, and it's the, they call it a 2 foot, but it's about 2 foot plus that whip actually. And yeah, I've actually got one of these deployed on the other family vehicle, and it does work very well. For a short antenna, it really does punch above its weight, and yeah, nice and lightweight, so not too bad in that respect. But there is a weakness I found where the wire goes into the ferrule at the bottom. I've had several of these, including the 4 foot version of this, that breaks. And it wasn't just due to the fact that I'd hit something, because they say super flexy, but they're not that flexy. It was on a spring, so it actually went, even though it was on a spring. So there's definitely a weakness around there. But I'm monitoring the performance of the other one. There's no chance that that's going to hit anything, because that's just used locally on open roads. There's no chance it's going to catch any branches or anything. So there we go. It's a shame that it has got that weakness, because it does work very well indeed. And generally I would say again it's a 40 channel twig, but depending on the installation location, I have managed to get these to tune down over 80 channels, i.e. it was on the fixed mount. I think on the Polo it did actually work very well. So yeah, there we go. I'll have to decide whether I've got the confidence to roll this out on say a higher up vehicle, because I must admit I did lose confidence in these antennas following several failures of that wire where it joins that ferrule. Anyway, I haven't got the antenna with me. The one I've decided to go for my sort of short antenna for it's basically for the shot run, because when you do a shot run you don't really want external people calling in saying, oh, can you give me a signal report and the rest of it. It's literally just want a little bit of comms between the missus and me, and I can, as I go around the shops, I can shout back and say, do you want me to get a bag of sugar while I'm there, that type of thing. For that, and also for convoys, but it's just a few cars or a couple of cars, 500 meters apart, whatever. I've actually gone with, for that, I've gone with a, I think it's a 3 foot Dynamatch, mainly because it's very discreet antenna, very easy to tune with the tuning rings, and it wasn't the best, it wasn't the worst performing, but it's good enough for that application. So that's what I've gone for. That's the one that lives on the Toyota when I need it for that purpose. Anyway, as we move up into the next level, that's when it got a little bit more complicated, because all of my transmitting locations, certainly all apart from Blorenge that is, they were right down, this is very undulating terrain around here, so it's a real world situation of how antennas will perform in a mobile situation. And the locations are really in quite undulating terrain, so none of them had anything like a decent signal path back to the receiving station. And it became obvious that the medium-sized antennas were the ones to go for, because I guess, and I proved it to a certain extent with the field strength testing in one of the videos, that they did have a decent performance, i.e. a decent radiation pattern, but it was a little bit higher, so it did manage to sort of ride the terrain rather than a better antenna with a lower radiation angle, which would have hit lower down in the hills, if you see what I mean. Yeah, that was pretty much the surprise that those big antennas weren't always the best thing for the job. So if you're just in a situation like this where we've got a lot of hills and undulating terrain, something medium-sized was the optimum thing for the job. Now, the ones that worked the best were the top loads again. There was a sort of intermediate one, put my teeth in, the 3 foot fire stick. That didn't seem to have much on the super flexi, so I wasn't all that impressed with that. But I had tested that with a spring at the bottom, and I have noticed that does knock a little bit out of the performance. So perhaps I need to give this one another chance. But at the end of the day, it's a very unforgiving, heavy antenna, and like I illustrated in one of the other videos, it can get into a bit of a metronome type thing. If it hits something, it takes ages to settle down. So there we go. That was the sort of middle of the road one. But certainly these top-loaded antennas, they do tend to tune down in difficult installation locations because they tend to radiate more from the top. And also, as a general, very rough rule of thumb, they tended to work about as well as an antenna, a base-loaded antenna, a foot longer. So if I got a 3-foot thunder stick like this would work about as well as a 4-foot base load. That was the sort of very rough conclusion I came to. So there we go, that was that one. But then it got into the realms of, say, the full-sized Springer. Again, not everyone likes these, but it did perform very well. Again, tendency to wobble around on the coil to perhaps give you a little bit of signal deviation and SWR change by the compression, etc. of the coil. But certainly I would not discount using one of these if I was going off to a soft green lane in the RAV4, or indeed round just general country lanes. Even in this area, they are very narrow roads, a lot of overhanging branches excuse me, and these things do take quite a few hits. So yeah, that worked very well, that full-size Springer. Now the one I've actually gone for, excuse me, I'll have a quick slurp of the famous grouse there, little miniature, if I've not mentioned it already. The one I've actually gone for on the vehicle is a sort of, I wouldn't say a daily, but the sort of antenna that if you're just driving around, you actually want to hear a bit of radio traffic. Is the modulator. I've gone for the Les Wallen modulator. Wasn't the best performing, and indeed if I was going around, like I say, the country lanes, the long coil, I would probably take it off. But for what I'm doing around this area, it's absolutely fine, and covers a lot of channels. SWR is really low, very wide banded antenna. The whip is nice and flexible, so it will take some hits as long as it doesn't take the hit on the loading coil, and it does work extremely well. I would have gone with, say, this one, the triple top load, which all the way through all the tests really did punch above its weight. And I actually keep one of these in the RAV4 because it's narrow enough just to sit across the back of the seats, just hide it behind the back seats. And if I did manage to stop for a little bit of unexpected net action or something like that, that would be up a little bit on the, believe it or not, the Les Wallen, if I remember rightly. So nice twig, again, tuned down lovely, covers a lot of channels, but again, it's quite stiff and unforgiving. I did run one of these on the Vitara when I did the Strata Florida, and it was really going like Billy O as far as wobbling around on the vehicle, but it did hold up, nothing went wrong, but it was a little bit extreme, if you know what I mean, as far as movement on the vehicle as I went over the 4x4 undulating terrain. But very good antenna indeed. But I have gone with the Les Wallen modulator. Now, like I said, in the undulating terrain here in the real world, so to speak, that was pretty much the best compromise. And yeah, it is working very well. The big twigs, they, as I look back now, they really do need an optimum installation location. As in, on the RAV4, they didn't like that roof basket at all. SWR, mind, perfect. But as we saw with the field strength, the radiation pattern of the big twigs is low. So I guess that got disrupted by that roof basket structure. Also, they really do need a really good ground plane, like I've said before. If you're going to run them on a mag mount, make sure it's one of those big triple lows to give you a really good capacitive connection to your vehicle body. Ideally drilled mount, and indeed if I do roll out a sort of radio, a car with more radio performance in mind, I will drill right down through the centre of the roof, and I'll put a fixed mount right slap bang in the centre of the roof with no junk on the roof like roof baskets, roof boxes and roof bars. That seemed to upset the apple cart with those. When I went up to Blorange, I went up there on the in the Polo with nothing on the roof, and we did see that improvement. Also, because they've got this low angle of radiation, they do tend to fire their signal lower down into the terrain, so the signal's got more to do to ride that terrain. So there we go. They came into their own really as a hilltop DX antenna with an ideal installation method. Polo, fixed mount through the roof on top of a mountain, and then you saw a little bit of clear blue water between them and the medium-sized antennas below. Probably the best antenna that you could consider perhaps running daily was the 5-foot Fire Stick 2. A little bit heavy, long and unforgiving for me really, but perhaps on a spring maybe. But that one did perform extremely well. It was up on the triple top load, and it wouldn't have been, I didn't manage to take it up to the Blorange because it was actually deployed elsewhere at the time, but I doubt it would have been probably a quarter of S point down on the big twigs even at the Blorange. So I think if I grabbed a DX antenna, I think I can hear a mouse or a rat outside, countryside living, I think I would have just gone with the 5-foot Fire Stick. So certainly on the RAV4 with the roof basket, now my Polo is actually gone from the fleet, so to speak, I haven't got the ideal installation location to run one of those bigger twigs. And I say bigger twigs, things like the Ampro 11 meter, lovely antenna. I'm sure it would come into its own, especially like I said on these mountains with a fixed mount right the way, slap bang in the centre of the roof. Beautiful signal launch. This type of thing would really shoot that low angle radiation you'll need to shoot what they call the F layer skip when it comes back properly in due course. So there we go. So yeah, so in conclusion, you could run some of these big twigs if you lived probably in America, say, but you see some people sort of mount these big antennas low down on bumpers behind the sort of superstructure of the vehicle. That's going to give you a very dysfunctional radiation pattern. But if you can get them on the roof, decent mount, no junk in the way, flat terrain, you could drive around with them and they would work extremely well. As soon as you start going into the hills and things like that, and the English countryside, Welsh countryside, that's when the sort of medium antennas certainly come to the fore as the best thing for the job, which is great because I don't think running a 9-foot antenna in the centre of the roof here in the UK is particularly practical. And yeah, so that is the conclusion of it all. And yeah, big twigs, they're set up in the roof there, waiting for the day that I've got a vehicle where I can drill a hole in the middle of the roof and allow them to shine. Now when you see some of these tests and one antenna is like a half or a quarter of an S point up on the other one, or half an S point, that does represent a fair bit of gain. So if you hear stories of say someone saying, oh, I tried this antenna and then I tried this antenna was 3 S points up on the other one, then the only way that could really happen is if the original antenna was faulty. I digress a little bit here, but you do hear stories of I took my Antron 99 down and I put up a silver rod, and the silver rod was 3 S points up on the Antron 99. Well, the only way that it could be 3 S points up on the Antron 99 is if there was something faulty about the Antron 99 or the connection to it. There's no way that one similar sized antenna or even one vertical against another, say a Antron 99 IMAX 2000 or that, it's never going to be 3 S points up. You're always talking half an S point really at most, which does represent about 3 dB gain. So that's quite a lot of gain, to be honest. Don't take any notice of the gain figures quoted in the adverts. That's BS. You're sort of talking between verticals, about 3 dB. In the case of these mobile antennas, there's probably between the worst twig and the best one 2 S points at most, but that does represent a lot of gain. So just be aware that sometimes you might think, that wasn't worth doing, it's only half an S point. Half an S point can make a lot of difference, and that is the equivalent basically of doubling your power. It's like going from 4 to 8 watts will give you half an S point on a correctly reading S meter at the receiving station. So there we go, that is it. That is conclusion to my Antenna Shootout series, and who knows, it may return in some form at a later date, because I still have a few things that I've yet to sort of explore and prove to myself and to you. But I have to say the highlight of the whole thing was probably the rediscovery of the field strength testing on the old SWR meter there. Enjoyed that and plotting the results, and I thoroughly recommend, if you want to do some testing of the sort of radiation angles and the radiation pattern of particularly your mobile antennas, grab one of these little devils. There's loads of them on eBay and stuff like that. Field strength, beauty. So there we go. I wish you all the best. I'll take my last slurp of a whiskey, and we will catch you on the next one. Cheers. Cheers on whiskies all. Sorry folks, just when you had thought you'd seen the last of me, I'm back again with a bit of a PS, a bit of an addendum to the video. I listened back to it and I thought, oh damn, I didn't mention the big Sirios. A couple of people said, why don't you test something like a big Sirio 4000 or whatever they got out now against these other twigs. I haven't got one to test, and I daren't buy any more, because I've got so many antennas lined up over there. Then it would be crazy to get even more in. I'm happy with what I've got and all the rest of it now, so it is what it is. But I can sort of extrapolate the results somewhat. Now this is going to be a base loaded antenna, so it's not going to be quite as good as a full sized quarter wave whip. That's just the name of the game. If you load something up, it loses some efficiency. But having said that, that sort of loading, etc., it can help with the sort of matching as far as SWR is concerned, because some people do find problems with SWR and big twigs like the tank whip and things like that. Things that got no loading coil or anything to assist with matching. It's just a balls out quarter wave whip on the top of your vehicle, basically making up a quarter wave ground plane antenna with your vehicle as the ground plane. But yeah, certainly being, I think they're about 6 foot, they're going to be pretty close to the performance of the big twigs, and certainly for something you could drive around with. Personally, I go through too many country lanes and things like that post lockdown, and probably get back to it a bit after the lockdown, driving through country lanes and things like that. It's just the way it is around places like this. It will be catching all the time on overhanging branches, and that would really get on my nerves. So I tend to shy away from something that long on top of, say, the RAV4, which puts the antenna 12-13 feet up in the air to the top. But for people that don't mind that, or people that don't tend to go up country lanes and things, I think that would be a really good antenna, those big Sirios. And it would be probably the best thing you could probably put on your car, full stop. If you don't want to change over to something different for your Hilltop DX, that's going to be a great antenna for that. It's going to be a great antenna in the open countryside. The only thing I would say, it may be less than optimum, less than ideal in undulating terrain, because as we discovered from some of the other tests, the sort of medium-sized antennas, the ones with the slightly higher radiation pattern, did do better in these undulating hills as we have around here. So perhaps that big Sirios, perhaps if they have got, or they will have, a low angle of radiation, perhaps that would make them less than optimum as far as undulating terrain. But apart from that, they are going to be very good indeed. And yeah, as I said, because they have got some element of loading and some element of base loading, then they are going to have a slightly higher angular radiation than top loads and the full-sized, really big twigs like the Ampro and the full quarter wave whip. But certainly, I can't think that it's going to be a lot in it, and they're going to be about the best thing you could probably shove on your car, as long as you don't mind a 6-foot antenna residing on your vehicle, probably day to day. So there we go. The only other one that was mentioned was the very famous K40 antenna. Again, I think that's just over 1.5 meters long, high quality construction, so I'm led to believe. But it's going to be a base load. I would say that probably a K40 would be on a par performance-wise with, say, the Les Wallen or something like that. And yeah, pretty good. Certainly very good in, as I say, keep saying it, the undulating terrain. Okay, that's it for real now. So I'm going to sling my hook and get back to the house and call it a day. So indeed, this time I will catch you on the next one.